This is the injury report presented by NYU Langone Health. All right, Nets fans, I might have some good news for you. The Nets' Cam Thomas, as you guys know, has started on-court activities after suffering another hamstring strain. That's the second time in months that this hamstring has kept this man off the court. So today's injury report, we have Dr. Laith Jazrawi, orthopedic surgeon at NYU Langone Health, to see if we can get ourselves a Thomas timeline on when he can get back in action and on the court. Doc, how you doing today, my man?
I'm great, Brandon. Thanks for having me on. And it's a tough question. Hammies, tough injury. We don't know the extent of it. What's on the MRI? Did he have a sprain? Can mean a lot of things. Sprains are different degrees of tears. How bad's the sprain? And that's where the challenge comes up as you start to deal with managing these athletes and a timeline about getting them back to work. And that's getting them back to the game. Yep. And that's the challenge. He's tried to come back, which was probably a benign injury or not that great, or the MRI showed that it wasn't that bad. But then as he tried to get back, he re-injured himself. Yeah. So something is going on. And that's not new, or that's not something that's not abnormal for hamstring strains. You see it. It happens. Yeah. They can have relapses, and it can be hard for them to come back because the hamstring muscle spans both the hip joint and the knee joint, particularly prone to injury and tearing. So that's where we're dealing with now. Now, fingers crossed that this injury is not so bad that they're actually letting him back. And I'm certain after he re-injured it, they got another MRI just proving that it wasn't anything major and just a muscular injury. So I have, high hopes that this is going to be fine.
So without being hands-on on the athlete and seeing the MRI and all that, can you talk to us about the fact that since he's now doing on-court activities with no contact, and we mentioned this is the second time that he's missed time because of the hammy, where does that put him from a doctor's standpoint in terms of where he could be on this timeline in this rehab?
Yeah, so for me, he's in phase 2 and approaching phase 3. They're allowing him to do non-contact out there. Phase 3 is where he's actually in practice doing, contact drills and explosive drills. And that's the tough part. Without the ability to do that, you're not able to get back and play. And so it's critical that, it's good news that he's progressing through this system and actually making progress, and actually we're able to get him on the court and do that stuff. So that's a good sign. Okay. I'm confident that in the next 6 weeks that we're going to see something, and that, he should be back. But, time will tell.
Doc, I've been around a lot of professional athletes in my heyday, a lot of explosive athletes. These soft tissue injuries, I feel like they occur more than the bone breaks and tears in pro sports. So why haven't trainers or strength and conditioning coaches found a way to train the hamstrings or whatever muscles or tissues that they need to be able to hold up throughout a season? Why do the soft tissue injuries occur so much?
That's a great question. And the answer is, very, very simple. It's the explosive nature of what they do. That when they go to the hoop, when they go to dunk the ball, you're talking about a lot of both concentric forces where the muscles are contracting. There's also these eccentric forces where not only are the muscles contracting together, they're pulling apart. And that causes a lot of stress in the tendon, a lot of stress in the muscle, making them prone to injury. How do you make them less prone to injury? Well, obviously it's the whole mantra of static stretching, dynamic stretching, where you make those units flexible. The younger you are, the more flexible they are, the less prone you are to injury. But even if you're young, the idea is that if you're doing a lot of explosive things, they're still prone to injury. Yes, you do the stretching to prevent it, but fatigue sets in. Fatigue plays a major role in these injuries as well, where you get tired and a lot of your core or assistive muscles or surrounding muscles are not able to cover and do the job to control it. So then you get injured. And then once it gets injured, especially a muscle tendon unit that spans two joints, like the hamstrings do, you're then going to have challenges because you can never truly rest those muscles. And that's the issue with hammies. They become particularly prone to re-injury because they're hard to fully rest. And they're really one of the major muscles in any of these explosive sports that are required to function at a very high level.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. But I'm glad you just said that because we're talking about the Brooklyn Nets, who are at the bottom of the NBA when it comes to record. Their season is pretty much over. So does it even make sense for them to bring him back? Like if he was to hurt it for a third time, can we be talking about some significant damage and long-term problems? He is part of the future.
Yeah. So great question again. So these are all very poignant and important. And this is a risk, benefit ratio. What are you going to lose if you lose this guy forever? And what are you going to win if you have him, at the end of the season? And also, what is all the doctoring stuff that's going on? Does the image not show anything? Meaning the MRI. Maybe it doesn't really show that much. And maybe this is more, hey, you can go back there. You can do this, trying to get him some confidence. And then on the flip side, if you have a situation like this where he goes out and gets injured a third time, then you're really knocking this kid's confidence. And you start to get into a point where you got to deal with the psychological nature of his condition. But be rest assured, I truly believe that his MRI is probably negative, or it shows that it's completely healed, because I doubt they would put him back in the season, as you said, especially when they're at the lower bottom, at the bottom of the bracket.
And we're talking about the Brooklyn Nets, who already have a player who has been dealing with the psychological condition of his injuries, and Ben Simmons, and that's no knock to him, but I mean, it's just it's there, it's out there. That information is out there that the injuries kind of messed with his head. Hey, Doc, when we talk, you're an orthopedic surgeon. Have you ever had to like operate on a hamstring or soft tissue injury? Can it get that bad?
Oh, of course. I mean, we operate on, just imagine this is a strain, but what if you get a avulsion? Typically the avulsions occur proximally, the ones that we operate on, where the tendon rips off the bone. You got to put it back on, because then you'll have no strength if you don't put it back on. The ones that we don't operate on, they're ones that are in the muscle itself, where the muscle tears. Those typically heal on their own. Okay. So the proximal ones we fix. We go in there, you make an incision in the butt area, find the tendons and reattach them to the ischium, or what we call the butt bone. And then it's a tough recovery. It's a 6-month recovery minimum on these athletes. Crutches and a brace for about 6 to 8 weeks to protect it. So it's a tough recovery. Now, what about the ones that are minorly injured that don't seem to, get better? Well, this is where we get into these injections, the biologics. PRP, a lot of athletes get platelet-rich plasma. It's their own blood with the growth factors. You inject it into the area that's diseased with the hopes that it'll heal the tendon area. So we do a lot of that on athletes to speed the recovery up. Why hasn't he had it? Well, we don't know the extent of his injury. And a lot of the data with PRP, questionable, 50-50. So why risk injuring him more by doing something we're not 100% sure about whether it's going to even work?
Man, after you just broke that down, I'm down with OPP and PRP, Doc. Absolutely love that.
I set you up. I set you up for that one. That
Swish,
was good.
baby. That's why we're such a great
duo.
Right. Last question. Because you mentioned for the young guys, like, okay, their bodies recover better and all. I'm former professional athlete. I'm 40 now, and we also have a lot of weekend warriors and non-pro athletes that's watching this interview right now. So let's say that they hurt their hammy, got back to being active, and then they injured it again. What advice would you have for them in terms of rest, rehab, and recovery?
Yeah, I would say go to physical therapy, get stretch, yoga. Something is up with as we get older, our tendons get less flexible. They're more prone to tearing. And those are the classic, you go out, play football during Thanksgiving weekend, and you tear your hammy. And that's a tough thing to recover from. And it's common. It has a lot to do with, being inflexible, not warming up properly, and getting older. And those are things that are avoidable if You do have a nice stretch routine. Don't focus on, one sport, cross train where you're working all the muscles, and really warming up before you go out there and doing other things during the week and not saving everything for the weekend like the weekend warriors do.
I'm not gonna lie, Doc. I don't warm up before I work out, but after this interview, I'm about to go stretch right now, my man.
Dynamic stretching,
Yes, sir.
Brandon.
Yes,
Dynamic.
sir.
Make it fun. Jumping jacks, burpees. You got it.
Oh, you had me at jumping jacks. You lost me at burpees. I hated them during pro football. I hate them even more doing now. But Doc, thanks for hopping on with this, man. This was fun.
All right,
as
Brandon.
always.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
You as well.